Yes.
Okay. This meeting will come to order. Please call the roll. It's Plan Commission, by the way.
Benjamin? Here. Hendries?
Here.
Kasdorf?
Here.
Klibowitz?
Here.
Morin?
Here.
Is there anyone desiring to be heard? None. Consideration of the minutes, October 7th, 2025.
I make a motion, we accept the minutes.
I'll second it. Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
On opposition, say nay. Motion passes. New business. Item A, discussion on zoning setbacks, lot widths, and building areas.
So, Mr. President, this first, as well as the other three items on the agenda for the evening, is coming forth as the village is looking at overhauling the zoning code, making a number of clerical things, such as kind of putting conditional uses embedded with the district rather than kind of being off on its own in its own section, so that when you're looking at a district, you're looking at the whole of that section. That's an example of just like a clerical section of just moving stuff around, not changing content. Also making a number of minor tweaks here and there. Those will be brought forward once we're ready with each district to the Plan Commission for consideration. But as situations come up, as people have come to the village and we end up hitting certain zoning snags, we wanted to try and say, hey, we've had a number of these issues come up. We need guidance from the Plan Commission on specifically these three items as far as what direction staff should try and research before coming to you with an actual draft of something. And so what we're bringing before you tonight are three general discussion items in which we will be looking for guidance, but not like getting into the weeds or trying to adjust one number or one setback to a certain number, but just trying to understand on a broad, high level what direction you would like staff to take in drafting a potential change to the district. On our first item that we're looking at setbacks, just wanted to try and highlight three specific examples for consideration. The first one is a property just south of Village Hall at 4736. We've had a property owner come to the village. The property is platted as two separate lots, but merged into one. And it is on the corner. However, our zoning code doesn't distinguish between a side street yard versus a side yard setback. And so if we would take a literal interpretation of that setback, that property would be almost unbuildable because it would have to have the same street setback as to the front of the house. In addition to that, what we've noticed is that what likely happened is that streets were widened over the years, especially in our R1, our older neighborhoods. You have streets get widened and suddenly a setback that might have made sense almost 100 years ago when the subdivision plat was initially put in. Now suddenly you have a street that gets widened and properties are no longer meeting that. An example of that would actually be one of our larger industrial properties at 126-575 West Silver Spring Road, just on our north side to the east of our DPW building. That's an example of a property that is grandfathered in from a zoning standpoint, but from a practical standpoint, we still have this grandfathered or non-conforming structure that, for all intents and purposes, still meets like every other rule, but this setback. And so if that building ever wanted to expand, they would run into that issue where any new expansion would have to be jigsawed back to meet that extra 5 feet from the new right-of-way line because Silver Spring Road was widened at one point. And so the last thing that I wanted to highlight was just another corner lot at 4903 North 125th Street. That's a property that's corner lot. The owners came in, said, hey, we're want to do an expansion, kind of take the existing attached garage, make it into living space, and then add a garage on the essentially to the east of the property. But because of that setback rule, they would have to jigsaw the house back, and then it didn't really become practical for them to kind of pursue at that time. And so with this first item, just we're not looking at trying to necessarily solve like, hey, let's just move this 5 feet or this 5 feet. We're really looking for more of, hey, do we want to make a drastic change? Do we just want to make an incremental change or somewhere in between? And with that, I'll turn it over to Caitlin to kind of do a better presentation than I just did.
Did you, before you start, did you want me to read, are we doing items A, B, and C all at once?
One at a time.
One at a time. So you're be discussing item A still?
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. For the first memo on the agenda, we would like to bring forth a discussion about the setback parameters in the village zoning code. The past few months, we have begun diving into the current zoning code and looking at areas the code could be revamped and or altered to better serve the village of Butler. One of the outcomes of this exploration has led us to create a data analysis of setbacks from properties around the village. You will notice that this is included in your packets. This data analysis reflects a large proportion of properties across Butler that do not fit within the current setback requirements and have a reliance on their legal nonconforming status from being grandfathered in. Historically, Butler has built roads altering the village without updating the zoning code to match the changes. This in turn has expanded the legal nonconforming group of properties to where we are today. The large reliance on legal nonconforming buildings creates a challenge and a question of retention for keeping property owners throughout the village. After 365 days, if no work has been started on the property after 50% or more have been destroyed, the building must rebuild to fit setback requirements. This especially holds importance after disastrous or destructive events. We provided this memo in front of you to discuss the possible recommendations that administration has created to begin the conversations. The 3 recommendations are as follows. 1, adjusting setbacks to limit generally matched historical norms. 2, making moderate setback adjustments. And 3, making small changes but generally maintain the code as it is. This memo and data analysis is meant to generate a conversation on possible actions the village wishes to take. We ask you to view this memo and the data analysis and provide your thoughts. If you have any questions, please direct them to Ben and Aaron as they're leading this project. Thank you.
So want to highlight, but in the memo, we kind of outline kind of few different general options. If we want to make just minor changes to just move maybe a few properties from being legal non-conforming to being legal structures, that would be kind of the most incremental, just very small change to the setbacks. On the far extreme, on the other side, we have changing setbacks to try and move as many legal conforming properties or legal non-conforming properties into a legal status. That would have us be allowing setbacks that match historical norms of what's out there right now, so that if somebody wanted to do a minor expansion that they could, but in a sense, the intent behind the most extreme option would be the plan commission saying, hey, we have a more historic neighborhoods here. We should have setbacks that kind of match the same characteristic of these historical norms of what's out there now.
And just kind of going off of what Caitlin was talking about, she did an excellent job looking at a bunch of different randomly selected properties and doing that analysis. And as you can see in the memo, up to between like 80-90% of the village has a possible violation of the zoning code in at least one area. So recently, we've kind of been tightening things up a little bit. We're looking at the possibility of loosening things a little bit now to kind of allow for more of the properties to become legal conforming instead of legal non-conforming. So basically trying to remedy the issues that are outstanding, where again, the zoning code itself probably hasn't been updated in some time when it comes to those setbacks. So that's kind of the goal, is seeing what you guys want us to do. Do you want us to really, again, overhaul it, or kind of keep it how it is now? Or are you comfortable with that? Kind of what direction, as the planning commission, is kind of your responsibility to uh, point us in a direction on where you would like to see the village head into the future when it comes to this. With the idea being, being careful of various things with regards to density, how close houses are going to be able to be together, that type of stuff. Just kind of keeping in mind, if you make these changes, then people are going to be able to start acting on those. And will they have a potential negative downside where now people are building really close to lot lines when they weren't being able to do that before? So just something to kind of weigh as you discuss and think about this topic.
Right.
So right now, everyone that you say some properties are illegal, if I heard that, but they've not really in the sense because they are grandfathered in.
Yes. So legal non-conforming is what most of these structures that have a violation would be. Worst case scenario, if the entire home would be destroyed, they would have a year to pull permits to rebuild exactly in the same footprint that they are in.
Say that again?
So legal non-conforming or grandfathered would allow a property to be rebuilt if, worst case scenario, a fire, tornado came in. They would be able to rebuild the home in the same footprint, or in this where exactly where the current home is.
At 51%, at 50%.
Yes, at 51% of damage,
Right.
they would still have a year to restore that home and retain that grandfathered status.
Where did the 1 year come into effect? Who set that?
Wisconsin statute
That's
for
state.
retaining the legal non-conforming, or a legal non-conforming status.
I mean, I'm not to say anything, but anybody aware of like the California fires or things here?
Mhm.
There could be problems as long as you're moving forward or trying to move. It's not considered the year.
So long as the property owners are actively engaged. So it doesn't meet the 51% standard of the home being destroyed, but the Butler Inn, which does meet setbacks, but the Butler Inn suffered damage. They struggled with their insurance company for over 6 months, and now they are moving forward. But that would be an example of saying, hey, the property owner is actively engaged in a fight with their insurance company. They're actively engaged in an architect and pulling permits. They still retain that status. But if a property goes dormant, for a
Who
year.
determines whether it's proceeding forward or not?
that's to the discretion of the village zoning administrator.
Okay.
And typically, obviously, since I'm, as a small municipality, all of our staff are kind of deeply rooted in these properties. So if something were terrible to happen, when building permits are being pulled, or there's, people come in and talk to us, they talk to us, like, I'm the zoning administrator. So, we're going to be aware of a lot of things that are going on, and we would obviously be reaching out to people if we haven't really heard anything in some time. We would be obviously trying to reach out to them and kind of asking them what's going on before we would, make any type of decision on that. But we're pretty deeply entrenched, so at least we would know kind of what's going on in the back and forth.
I think as far as having like an immediate impact, there's a few lots. The potential division of 4736 North 127th Street, as well as the property up on Lucille Lane. If suddenly the front setback gets relaxed, then those properties would materially benefit from a relaxation of the zoning code. Whereas for most properties, most residents aren't necessarily looking at making an immediate expansion of their home one way or the other. This is more of, hey, we're able to move properties and recognize we have historic neighborhoods. Let's make having setbacks or zoning rules that would essentially allow for these structures to be considered legal conforming rather than legal non-conforming. And that's because normally you want your setbacks to be to represent what you want the village to look like. And with more strict setbacks, you're saying that, hey, if somebody built a new home, we want it to look this way. Whereas if we look at what historically is out there right now, you couldn't build a home at the same sight line as any other home on the same block.
If that was the case where you had to rebuild to the current, they'd have to, let's say something happened to somebody's house, they'd have to rebuild to the current, what's on the books now. Could they come for a variance if they had to build in their same spot?
So if it was beyond the year,
No, just from day one.
so then if they went and started pulling permits, they wouldn't need any type of variance.
So they could build on the exact same footprint.
Correct. Within that year, if it's that 50.1 or 51% or more destroyed, they would be able to build in that same footprint. Again, the goal is to be, obviously there's no immediate concern that something like that would happen, but there is the very real possibility that, again, you see this plenty of times where tornadoes touch down and they take out a swath of a neighborhood, or again, we have a flood, or Brookfield had their wildfire like a year or two ago. It didn't take out any homes, but it's still the possibility that something like that could happen, and we just need to be, I guess, proactive versus reactive when it comes to that.
So back in the day, these, like, everything has different setbacks. Each zone has a different setbacks or front or rear side.
Correct.
So over time, way before us, people thought that those were the appropriate setbacks. So the administration is asking the plan commission to change all the setbacks in each, or just make it more uniform? Is
So
that what
the-
the ask is?
What we're asking is, how do you want us to approach it? Are you comfortable leaving the setbacks as they are now, where you have substantial nonconformance across all zoning districts? Or do you want us to kind of do an investigation and see, okay, what is, the more like the average setback, or where most of the properties are, and adjusting the setbacks to kind of meet that, where if something like that were to happen, they could still build, or they could maybe expand a little bit, versus where we are now, kind of making them all legal conforming versus legal non-conforming.
But that title doesn't matter, does it? Legal conforming versus non-conforming?
Only when it comes to the replacement of a property if it was substantially damaged.
It does come into view when you look at your insurance value, though. If you insure your home, 'cause I know the house that I'm living in on south of the tracks is non-conforming. And my insurance is a lot different than my house on the Hampton Avenue. As far as replacement value, as far as what can be done with it. So the
Would
non,
that have anything to do with what we're talking about here?
I don't think so on mine, because mine is strictly in a business area that was built there before they built up around it. So my house is in a business district, specifically on your maps. So that would be different. What we're talking about, he's talking about is a residential. But I'm just saying it does make a difference on your insurance if it's non-commercial or non-conforming.
Non-conforming.
Yeah,
Because I know mine is, I'm pretty much guaranteed, I'm pretty sure I'm non-conforming. Because I looked in even putting a deck out the front, and I need to apply for a variance just to have a little deck come out straight out from my house. Because my house is so close to the lot line. So, I mean, other than that, I mean, you're talking also about newer houses. How many lots do we actually have in Butler that somebody can build a new house on?
There's several. I mean, obviously there's not a lot, but there's several. There's multiple double lots that have the potential. Like I said, there's the double lot on 127th and Derby that the property owner, well, actually the surveyor, came to us and he wants to build a new house on that lot, but it would be impossible given the setback requirements right now. So there are some places where there are open lots that could very well host a home. But the setbacks just don't allow that at this point.
So if we use that as an example, the house on 127th, so it's a double lot. It's a corner house with a double lot. There's a house and a garage on that property to begin with. So right now they can't build in that lot the way our current code is.
Correct, because the village code does not delineate between so the setback, the street yard setback would be the front of the house, basically. Then we don't have this, but a street side yard setback would be basically would be Derby. So the street yard setback would be where the street that their address comes from would be on, and then the street side lot setback would be kind of the one that neighbors it to the north. We don't delineate between that. We just say the street yard. So if you take the literal interpretation of that, that means that it has to be 25 feet on both the north and the eastern or the western sides, which would basically make the building envelope non-existent.
So in that situation, because that lot is it's a corner lot for those that aren't familiar, just what would be the setbacks then going forward? Is that what you want to try to investigate?
Correct. That's
see
what we're
what-
trying to get. Do you want us to move forward with investigating, adjusting the setback? And again, the same thing with like lot widths and building areas, where there's a number of properties on Hampton Avenue where we say in the R3 where it says, hey, you need to have this wide of a yard. They're nowhere near wide enough to be in that zoning district. So again, kind of trying to look at all of that and making them more accommodating to what's there, while also encouraging the possibility of new builds or expansions on lots that are not developed yet, or could become developed if they have a bigger yard and they want to put in a 3-season room, or they want to build a bigger garage. Right now, the zoning code does not allow that to happen. So people that want to utilize their property more are not allowed to because of the current zoning requirements. So again, we're looking at, do you want to kind of loosen that to allow for a little more of that development to be able to happen?
In the case of 127th that I've referenced, could they, like right now, could they currently come for a variance then if they wanted to?
So as Aaron and I would both probably agree, getting a variance is very difficult in the state of Wisconsin. They redid the laws, and it has to be an undue hardship not imposed on by yourself, and that your lot would be that you have unique characteristics of your lot that would prevent it from being utilized. So right now, that lot is a double lot. It is combined. The usage, if you split the lot, you're creating that undue hardship because you know that the setbacks are the way that they are. So you're creating that setback. Right now, that lot is very usable. If they wanted to expand that house, they could do that onto that lot because it is, like I said, it is combined. So the lot is usable. But if you split the lot, in my opinion, not a lawyer, but in my opinion, you're creating that undue hardship knowing that those setbacks are in place.
Does Wisconsin or the county have any requirements as far as the setback from either
Not,
an industrial district or
not that,
between
that
houses?
we're aware of.
Most setback requirements come from the municipality, or in our case, our public safety, to ensure that, because if buildings are further apart, you minimize the fire risks from going from one to the other. That's one of the reasons why you don't see that many row homes, because if you have two buildings that share a same wall, there's certain fire, you want a certain fire rating between those two, that shared wall, which is is more expensive than just having a 5 feet or 10 feet or 15 feet of separation.
And the state of Wisconsin, through the home rule, basically it's called Home Rule Authority, they grant Wisconsin municipalities pretty much the uniform ability to govern themselves when it comes to the planning and zoning. It says that because it's kind of like a by the people for the people thing. The people who live in the local municipality get to decide how their lots, how their setbacks, how big their homes can be, how big the lots can be. The people get to decide that in that municipality through you guys.
I've got a question. Bringing up my house at south of town here. The lots down there are only 30 by 60 deep, 30 wide, 60 deep. All of them down there that I own. How would these setbacks work on the side lots, on the width of the lot? For what you're saying here, I couldn't even put a house on them.
Well, and that's again where we're going to be taking a look at what they are currently and what the zoning code says, what they are built as right now. So obviously what they're built as is different likely than what the zoning code says. And what do we want them to look like? Do we want to bring them into conformance where now that those properties that you own are now in conformance with the zoning code? So if something were to happen, you would have no issue rebuilding on that lot. Do you want to keep them how they are? Again, that's kind of the question. We don't have any number in particular that we're asking for right now, but we're going to investigate and try to see if something like that would help.
And I gotta fall back to my house down there. On the south side, Ruby Avenue, it's 15 feet off of Ruby Avenue, off the property line. Setback to the house. From 126th Street, it's 18 feet. So looking at your dimensions here, it still doesn't fit within your dimensions here. And it's not making sense.
So the second page shows what the current setbacks are. So if you have a home that, see here, if I go to kind of page 2, that
Yeah,
where we kind of have that kind of spelled out in, let's see here. Which zoning district is that in?
I think the
M1. So in the M1 zoning district, if you have a home that's 18 feet setback, technically that would meet the setback from the front because the front setback is currently 12 feet and the side setback is 5 feet. So from a setback standpoint, a home matching what you described isn't an issue. It would be more of the use issue,
Right.
which is what you mentioned before.
right.
Again, what we're the chart that's there is not what we're proposing, is what is currently there.
Right, I understand. I'm just trying to get it, how
Sure.
we can look at things looking at things that I have already dealt with. And Barbie's building, 4509 property, sits right on 0 setback. Sits right on 126th Street. So between the two of them, there's, I own both properties, and one is right on the property line of the village and the other's got the setback. So I'm trying to figure out where this is going here.
And I think for us, what we're looking at is kind of the real metric that we would use for investigation would be the percentage number of homes that have an issue. So right now, we're looking at between 60 and 80% of all the homes having a setback issue of one form or another. Kind of the grade options that we have, A would say, if you kind of went with kind of like recommendation A of changing setbacks to match what is historically out there right now, our intent would be to try and move most homes from being non-conforming to being conforming. Whereas option C would say, hey, we can tweak it a little bit. We can maybe address the side yard setback issue for corner lots, but in general, leave most setbacks kind of as they are and not have as much of an impetus of moving homes from legal non-conforming to conforming. And so with option B, kind of a guidance from the Plan Commission saying, hey, still retain setbacks, but don't necessarily go too loose with those. So kind of like A being loosen setbacks to what is historically out there. C being, hey, retain setbacks largely where they are. Homes are grandfathered in, but maybe make a few tweaks here or there for corner setbacks and a few others.
With whatever option we choose, if we choose one, right now you said you're between, I guess, if I'm understanding, 65 and 90% of properties could be in a violation. What would
Yes.
be if we did something like this, what would be your goal of new percentages? Did you have some sort of a range?
Because I think it would be pretty difficult to get 100%, obviously. So if we can get between 70 and 80% in conformance, kind of flipping those numbers from a 60 to 90% out of compliance to a 60 to 90% in compliance, I think that would be a great way, because obviously you're not going to be able to, again, the houses were built how the houses were built. Where I don't think that we're going to be able to relax them enough to bring every single property into compliance.
What would be your vision of bringing them into compliance of that number?
I would, like I said, I'd say 70 to 80% compliance.
No, the distances. What's out there right now,
We-
looking at what's there.
Oh, go ahead.
That's what they're asking.
It
if
would
we
be
want.
dependent on each district. So we would look at what historically is
We're
out
looking
there.
at Homes right now.
Yep.
Let's stay with the homes.
So we would so if that was the case, we would look at what the average setback is for that district. We would try and find a number that reasonably would allow similar homes to be built, but maybe in a slightly different spot. We might, just given that one block is not the same as another, even within the same district, we might have something like a sightline setback exception, so that you still could have a home that was built so long as it generally matches the homes on that same block. We have a few different options of how we might want to do, of how we could get to getting 80% of the homes
Right.
into a legal conforming status.
I don't think it can hurt to look at options A and B, and if those, I mean, you could bring those back to us with some numbers and see, I mean, because everything out there is going to be grandfathered in no matter what we do. This is really only for, how do we look going forward?
Yes.
Well, if somebody wants to, say, remodel their house, or, I mean, yeah, if they want to add 10 feet on, well, like you're saying, well, now you got to move that whole thing in 5 feet just to build it out rather than being in line. So, I mean, what you're trying to say, I think, is, let's try to make as many houses conforming,
Exactly.
because
Correct.
what we have here is Butler. Like you're saying, there's such a percentage that is out of compliance that, I mean, yes, I don't want to say, you can't do it, but if I got a house like this, how can I tell my neighbor he can't have the exact same thing?
Correct. And kind of speaking to what you were talking about with the deck and some of the examples that we had where they wanted to expand their garage, if they wanted to add, instead of a 2-car, they wanted to move to a 3-car garage. That's where you run into some of those issues and you have to say, sorry, you can't do that.
What if something like that, though, if they want to build that and say there is a hardship with the neighbor that it's butting up to?
So they can always explore the variance process and apply for it. It would then go to the Board of Zoning Appeals, which then would have to comply with, it would have to meet the standards set by the state of Wisconsin, which we give to all the Board of Zoning Appeals members before every meeting. If they meet that criteria in the board's eyes, then they can be granted the variance and they can build how they wanted to. But again, that bar is pretty high as defined by the state statutes.
And this wouldn't affect like green space or anything like that. Like that's still going to be like a thing, despite setbacks. And
so again, that's the thing that I mentioned at the very beginning, is being kind of cognizant of that, because if you make let's just say the rear yard setback, instead of, I think one of them is like 30 feet from the back lot line. If we make it 20 feet, well, that's the potential where somebody could build out a 10-foot expansion in the back, and then that's 10 feet less of green space in the yard. Obviously, that would be the decision of the property owner to make that decision, but that could impact the amount of greenery on the front, side, or rear of a house.
When you're looking at doing these adjustment, like this outside where I am, houses are pretty much, they're not conforming. They're so tight together and up there. So that setback from the front wouldn't apply to like going further up Cameron,
Because
houses are newer and setback.
there's two separate zone. There's two separate. There's R1 and R2. So R2 is kind of like along and centralized to 127th Street and like 126th-ish. So that would fall under one set of setbacks.
Okay.
And then R1 again, you could make the setbacks the exact same, but could fall under a separate set of setbacks. And they probably, and right now they do, because I think that it's the R1 have to be set back further from the street than the R2.
So that setbacks would stay separate.
Correct.
How you're looking at doing it.
Correct. Every
by
district would have its own
Set- okay.
own setbacks.
And you want to look at each zone.
Every zoning district.
Okay.
Currently, are there any houses in the R1 or the R2 area that fall more under the R1 zoning requirements?
I guess I don't, Aaron, unless you know
I
differently.
mean, is
we
everything
haven't
set
really,
in stone there?
we haven't for like the zoning district that a home
Yeah.
falls under.
Yeah.
Nothing's ever set in stone.
Okay.
They anybody can petition to rezone a property as long as there's obviously not spot zoning and other types of regulations along with it. But the village itself could, when it's, use its power to rezone a property. Obviously, we would want to have permission from the property owners. That's when we rezoned the churches. We got permission from the churches to rezone their properties. Because obviously you don't want to just come in with, hey, I'm the government and I'm rezoning your property, but nothing's ever set in stone.
So are we somewhat in agreement to give administration the okay to just kind of look at options A and B, and if have to C, and just come back to us
I would say yes.
with what they come up with?
Yes.
C is completely off, I think, right now.
So then I would focus on A and B. And then what's your time frame?
I would say, I don't know, maybe like a month or two we can report back.
Yeah. So I think the intent in this exploration is coming up with an internal draft, making sure that we're checking it with Brookfield Fire Department to get their input, our own PD, Public Works, and then bringing a kind of a draft to the Plan Commission, seeing, hey, are we on track? Are we on what you're envisioning? Have a discussion. And then before we even get to the idea of implementing or recommending anything to the board to consider, we would have a public hearing in which we would then take our draft, share it with the public, solicit public input, address any questions that we have before, and have that public hearing at that time, in which, and that would probably be closer to the start of the summer, probably at the earliest, because that's something that we would reach out to the citizenry and make sure that they're aware of the discussion we're having and they have the chance to offer input. So it's most likely you will see a draft for discussion to make sure that we're hitting the points where you want. And then once we kind of get that draft, run it by legal at that point, it'll come back most likely to a third time during a public hearing, at which point the community will have a chance to come in and give their opinion on it.
I like that idea.
Yeah, I don't think we're in a major hurry because it's been like this. So whatever works for you guys.
Correct. And this is just one of the items that we've identified as consistently, since Aaron and I have worked here, gotten us hung up on various snags. And we're just trying to, at this point, smooth it out. And obviously we have elections, we have road projects, we have all that stuff. So this is kind of a behind the scenes work on it as we have time type of project. Because as you have said, it's been this way for 112 years, if not more. It's not going anywhere. But we just, again, want to be working on this, then we can kind of smooth all that out.
Were you going to speak for this one or another topic? Next one. Okay, do you have, I can see the lights flashing on the microphone. You wouldn't have batteries by chance, would you? So
We do.
thank you. Okay, so are we good with item A then? You have enough information?
Thank you.
Okay. New business item B, discussion on M1 zoning district uses and future vision for the district.
So, Mr. President and members of the Plan Commission, the village has had a number of users that always come forward with the M1 district and say, hey, I have this great idea. I want to do X, Y, or Z. However, the M1 is still very much orientated as far as explicit uses go, really meant to be more machinist, contractor shops. We've seen a number of automotive repairs populate the M1 district. And for reference, the M1 district populates the older industrial buildings, largely along the eastern side of the village, along 124th Street. Examples include Butler Tool on the larger side, Alaska Fresh, but also a number of smaller shops going all the way up to near Packerland. And so what we're looking for is that we've had one or two uses kind of, not, I don't want to use the word sneak in, but pop up as far as gyms, as well as a few other folks that have come forward saying, hey, I have there's this interesting space, I want to do X, Y, or Z in it. And so the intent here is that we have this manufacturing district. Most manufacturers want to go to a larger site. They want to do have a larger footprint, and really, it's as far as specifically manufacturing goes across the United States, whether as well as in the state of Wisconsin, whether it's Racine, Pleasant Prairie, or McGuanago. With my own experience, most manufacturers want to go to a larger site, a larger business. Butler Tool being an example of that. They were looking at expanding here. They paid for all the engineering, they paid for all this, and then they pulled the trigger on a 9-acre site up in Sussex. And so for us, we have this more historic buildings on the eastern side. And so what we're looking for is a high level discussion on what uses and what the character of the M1 district that the Plan Commission would like to see. And before we kind of get too more into it, I'll turn it over to Caitlin to kind of present her findings on that.
Hello again. For the second memo, we present a discussion on the M1 manufacturing district. The M1 district is home to a great number of neighborhood businesses and manufacturing businesses, providing an economic center in the village of Butler. Its unique setup with a dense populated area and multitude of mid-sized properties creates a great opportunity for the village to guide its vision. Recently, there has been requests by prospective business owners to conduct uses that are not listed under the permitted or conditional uses. However, a use similar to the one being asked for has been granted allowance previously for other businesses. An example of this would be a gym and/or recreational use. In our work to look over the zoning code, we found that this inconsistency is an opportunity to settle what direction the village sees this district heading towards. We were provided the following recommendations to begin a conversation on what exactly the direction the commission wishes to see the district move towards. These recommendations are: A, changing the M1 district into a more flexible district in the scope of allowable uses; B, affirming the manufacturing mix of uses in the district; and C, making a more substantial change to the district in the zoning code. We ask you to review this memo and the corresponding recommendations and discuss the desired path for the M1 district. Once again, if you have any questions, Ben and Aaron will be able to answer them. Thank you.
So what we're trying to accomplish here is we've had several businesses come to us and say, I bought this building, and what I see for it is I want to possibly have private, like a private volleyball court and basketball court in there. So then we can rent it out to leagues. We can have, school groups, maybe, have it basically a rentable recreational space. That's not exactly spelled out in the M1 district. Again, the zoning code has not been updated in some time, so it has some older references to various, types of businesses that may or may not be applicable now. We've had people wanting to open up, we had a guy wanting to open up like an RC racetrack type of business where he hosts like a lot of different competitions, and there's a good amount of people that come to them. And he's really excited about coming to Butler, but where he was originally looking in the B1, but now there's no properties that are of a good size. So he's looking at the M1, but that's not allowed in the M1. So we're looking at asking the commission, do you like the kind of the current list of uses? Do you want to expand the list of current uses to be a little bit more flexible, where we still keep the machine shops and the contractors, but then we introduce some possible other types of uses in there, like any type, like maybe recreational use or entertainment type of uses. Um, and again, it doesn't have to be all permitted. So like some of the stuff I would say could be more listed under the conditional uses because there's issues with parking or there's issues with crowd size, um, or traffic concerns. So, but even expanding it into a conditional use would allow it to happen versus now they wouldn't be able to do it at all. So just again, seeing where you guys are on what you see as the future of the M1 district, saying, hey, do we want to expand the allowable uses in this district, and do we want to take some of the allowable uses and maybe make them conditional uses to give us more safeguards? One of the examples could be we've historically had a little bit of an issue with let's just say like automotive type of businesses where they are doing are the repair shops, and we end up with a lot of junked vehicles outside. We end up with potential. I know that in the past we've had issues with maybe a couple nefarious business owners. So do we want to create more conditional uses where we would have more legal protections and legal requirements that we could place on them, that if they violated that, we could pull that permit back and say, okay, you got to get out, versus right now an occupancy, if we're granted occupancy, it's more difficult to revoke that versus a conditional use, because the conditional use is they are there on the conditions that they're conforming with the village's requirements. So again, kind of exploring that if you guys wanted to go down that road or not.
M1 is pretty much, it's kind of lenient the way it is. M1 you can kind of do, I mean, you're not worried about residents or like R1s, R2s. You can kind of do what you want within reason.
So,
That
so,
makes sense.
uh,
It's more of a question statement. Like, right now our M1s are in the main drags and they're not by residents. So
yeah, so,
They are.
the M1 does,
I know.
like, I think
But across the
anywhere
street.
you're on any M1 property, you're only 2 blocks really away from either the Frontier Park or the R1 district. Like Butler Tool is right across from several residents. You also have several homes within the M1 area. And there, as far as what we've seen, is that there isn't too much movement on lots and blocks really combining as of yet. And so you do have a district that is historic in the sense that it has a much older building stock, much smaller type of spaces than what most machinist shops that want to try and upscale and enlarge really look for. You do have, as of right now, relatively few vacancies in the district. And so you do have several tenant spaces within the district that are available. But as of right now, the village staff isn't seeing like a number of vacancies or a number of longstanding properties sitting vacant. I think for us, it's really saying, what direction does the village, does the plan commission want the staff to explore the M1 district going into? Making it more flexible, allowing more entertainment, recreational uses, to kind of help Butler kind of become a bit of a destination for uses that require a space larger than what the B1 may allow. Does the village plan commission want to kind of reaffirm saying, hey, we want this to be a manufacturing, a startup space, for more of a commercial type uses? Or potentially C, does the village really want to try and push and say, hey, we are open to larger scale development in the M1 district, whether that's going vertical or trying to encourage properties to combine?
With that, if we could do something in and keep it as a conditional, where we have the condition where we can say yes or no later on if we put our rules down and they step out of bounds. If we have the ability to say, okay, you're done, if they step out of line.
Correct.
I would like to see something like that.
Correct. And again, that's kind of what we're, we can again talk again, kind of review with the police department, but also just using our experiences with the building board. What are the uses that have historically been more problematic, and what uses currently are there that again in the M1 there's not a ton of parking.
Right.
So again, with the uses, if the use is allowed, what does that look like from a traffic and safety standpoint?
Exactly.
So again, with the conditional use, okay, great, you can be here, but you need to come up with like a parking plan, that type of stuff. Where the occupancy, it's a little more gray if if we can do that type of stuff. So yes,
That's where I'm going with it.
Yep.
Keep
And-
it in the gray zone, but keep it so we have some kind of limitations from the board to what's going on there.
And I think we would probably do that for any of the options listed,
Mm-hmm.
as far as definitely like if we have a series of problematic uses or issues like that, we would do that probably with any option that the plan commission chooses tonight. Kind of the main question is one of kind of a vision, is saying whether it's conditional or permitted, do you want the number of uses to kind of expand,
I think so.
or do you want to try and maintain the historic nature of a historic manufacturing district? Do you want it to be more flexible as a flexible kind of commercial district? Or do you really want to try and say, hey, let's kind of open the floodgates and see what happens?
I would say let's be a little more flexible, because Butler's always been a starting community for businesses, always. And as soon as they can afford it, they go on to a bigger building. And it's worked that way with other businesses too. Law firms that have been here, they're gone. It's not just businesses,
Mhm.
mechanical businesses.
Mhm.
It's everything. So I would like to see the flexibility of anything coming into the village that we could fit there within reason, fit, and let them work. Because it's a growing community, is not a stagnant community.
Correct. And that was kind of the opinion of Aaron and myself, is letting it become more, at the very least, a little bit more flexible
Right.
with some of the uses. Just because right now it's, we've had, like I said, we've had to turn away businesses that I think would be of great, a great asset to the community, but it doesn't match again, the machinist shops, the office buildings, that type of stuff. So if, I guess we'll ask the other members of the commission kind of what they were thinking and how you wanted to go about it, or if you have any other questions.
No, I agree with Bill. I mean, I think like something like if it came to us, we'd want to look at the noise factor. I think that would play into it, and that'd probably be under the conditional.
Correct. And to just to go back to what you asked, President Kasdorf, like, so an example of what the M1, so there's an M1 district where you have Alcone on 127th, and then their immediate northern neighbor is a multifamily building, and then next to it is a single family. So they're literally like neighbors with the residential district. So as you said, noise, traffic, parking would all be a concern, because obviously if you have a business that'll have a big event and attracts 30 people, and then there's 20 cars and they're lining up down 127th, Brian's going to be dealing with a lot of angry people calling, and we don't want that. So
Well, a good example is right here, the gaming house on the Sundays. They take up the entire parking lot, all the side streets, Main Street. They're filling the area, which is good for the kids.
Mhm.
So where do we go?
What do other board members think?
It's a fantastic idea, at least letting some flexibility to it, as long as it's within control, like what Bill was saying. I think parking is gonna be the biggest issue.
Yeah.
So you could bring that back to us then too?
yes.
Some ideas on that? Anything else on item B? Okay, you have enough on B then?
Yes, sir.
Okay, item C, new business. Discussion on B1 zoning district uses and future vision for the district.
And just to highlight, B1 is primarily along Hampton Avenue on the eastern side of Hampton Avenue in the village. And so I think, without further ado, I'll introduce Victoria to give a little bit more of an overview on that.
Hi, my name is Victoria, and for the B1 memo, for the last memo, we present the opportunity for discussion regarding the B1 Community Business District. B1 district serves as a primary retail commercial space within and along West Hampton Avenue. Due to its location along a high-traffic area and its proximity to residential neighborhoods, it is one of the most visible and impactful districts within Butler. As of now, the district currently allows a mix of retail, service, office, and limited recreational or assembly type uses. In reviewing the zoning code, the staff has identified that the B1 district is operating under regulations that may not fully reflect the current business trends. Given the district's commercial importance, the village has also received an increasing number of inquiries from prospective businesses whose proposed uses do not clearly align with the existing permitted or conditional use framework. This, combined with the inconsistencies identified in the current zoning structure, presents an opportunity to clarify the long-term in the current zoning structure with the vision for the B1 district. Similar to the M1 discussion, we are providing the following recommendations to begin a conversation on the future direction for the B1 district. A, maintain the existing permitted and conditional uses while clarifying the district's current vision. B, refine the district by increasing oversight of selected uses to reinforce a more specific commercial focus. Or C, expand the district for a more flexible mixed-use or downtown-style commercial district. We ask the Commission to review all the opportunities and provide a direction on the desired path forward for the B1 district. If you have any questions, please forward to Ben and Eric. Thank you for your time.
So this comes down to what basically do we want our main street to look like? And
Yes, and so primarily looking at what business mix do we want in there, everything from this also touches on accessory uses as well. And so we have one or two businesses that warehousing and distribution isn't specifically allowed, but we see these uses potentially popping up as a large accessory use. Easy Nails probably being the foremost example of a business on Main Street has a retail component, but has a significant warehousing and distribution side of that business. And so, something that we're looking at is saying, what do we want Main Street necessarily to look like? And so it's like, hey, do we want to try and just kind of keep things as the district largely the same, moving maybe one or two to a conditional use so that we can ensure that we can address parking and a few other concerns? Number B would actually say, have the plan commission try and explore trying to really promote a specific type of use or uses, maybe more entertainment focused, perhaps more retail focused, but really looking at trying to push what the district's vision is. And for this one, it's really not necessarily getting too much into specifics, but trying to understand what are the priorities, what type of uses that you would like to see in the district, and potentially number C, are you open to, that's kind of like open the floodgates of the previous option of saying, hey, do we want to encourage, if a property were to be redeveloped, somebody being able to build 2-3 stories of apartments above it? And so it's like, it's right now we have kind of a mostly 1 to 2 story downtown area, older building stock. I think this is a really meant to try and prime a conversation of saying, what do you want the downtown to look like? What type of uses do you want in it? Do you want apartments above those as a potential, something that would be allowed, with commercial being on the first floor and then kind of a mix of apartments above that? Or do you want to really try and say, hey, we really want to try and push retail along Hampton Avenue, or you really want to try and say, hey, let's make it more entertainment and try and have attract businesses along that type of flavor by allowing that.
Okay, if I can jump in here, where mobile is now, it was brought to the village board years ago before mobile was there. They're trying to sell the property, period. A company came in and wanted to put resident or businesses on the first floor, residences on the second floor, and they were shut down mainly because of the fire problem. I don't know how Brookfield would work now with a 2-story or a 3-story system, but at that point, we lost a good chance of redevelopment, that whole area, instead of a gas station, have businesses on that corner. And it frustrated me then, it still frustrates me now that we don't have the ability to put something like that back together here.
And just to clarify, any type of structure like that would have to meet the current, not just our code, but also the fire code, have to pass into the acceptance of Brookfield Fire Department of saying, hey, without knowing the fire code, I can almost guarantee sprinklers, fire rating, and a number of other things to make sure that the development is a quality one. But we wouldn't necessarily just say, hey, this is all permitted use, build it. It would be a discussion as far as making sure that there's certain conditions and to ensure a quality development in that case.
Well, that's what frustrated me back then when we were selling that property as a trustee, because now we end up with a gas station there. I'd rather seen businesses there than the gas station, but this is what we ended up with.
Correct. And again, it's one of those things of, again, as we talked about last year and continuing the conversation, and this is more moving it, because I know that in the past, it's been mentioned that, oh, we've talked about this before, but this is, probably the closest we've come to actually doing something about it, because again, we are in the process of looking at the zoning code and actually taking it apart and adjusting it. So again, what types of businesses, again, do we, I know that in the past we've had some issues with the event spaces. So do we want to move event spaces if we wanted to, because again, we can't necessarily outright, under various Supreme Court case law rulings, we can't outright ban an entire use of a property if, across the village as a whole. But if we wanted to move the, like an event space type of thing to a conditional use versus just an open permitted use, that's again kind of where this would fall. What do we want to see? Do we want to, open it up for, more officey type of stuff, kind of like a Permar? Because Permar, again, they've been there for a while, but really, if you look at the zoning code, the B1 district as defined right now is for providing individuals with their everyday essentials. So a security company having office space there arguably is not necessarily meeting somebody's everyday essentials. It's again kind of, if you read the permissible uses, it's again bakeries, it's painting shop, it's a lot of just like again retail, meeting everybody's day-to-day needs. So again, do we want to open that up? And I believe that it is, again, both mine and Aaron's, we would support the board or the commission wanting to increase the flexibility there and moving some of those, again, historically problematic business types into more of a conditional use where we would have more oversight, more regulation. The police department would be able to give us conditions that they would want. The fire department can ask to put conditions on the property. Versus right now, it's kind of like, okay, it's permitted. There's not a ton that we can do with regards to that.
Kind of falls in the same discussion that we had with flexibility. I mean, we want Main Street to look and present well for people coming through. And we know that there's not many storefronts that will go in. But I mean, it seems pretty full for the most part.
Yeah, I think that aside from the building directly to the east, I think every other property is actively open multiple days a week at least, along that.
What about considering even, if I'm not mistaken, I may be wrong, but we have residential in there.
In the current B1 code, apartments are allowed on the second floor if they meet certain size requirements.
But these are single family homes right now
in the
in the B1.
where exactly?
Right next to the dentist office.
Oh, to the that yeah, I think this borders the residential zoning district. Because there's to my knowledge, there's no residential.
There's one building that has that apartment on the second floor.
Yeah, but that's not a single family home.
No.
To our knowledge, there's no single family homes in the B1 zoning district.
Okay. I mean, I don't know. By looking at the map, I'm sitting there along Hampton. I know like my neighbor across the back of me, I know they're sitting there, they're a single family home there.
And if they're on Hampton, if it's west of like the I think it's Paul, like the optometrist,
Yeah.
I think if you
There's
go
one house
west of there,
there.
that's all R3. That's R3 residential.
Right at that, because the way it's drawn, it kind of looks.
Yeah, well, that map is not 100%, so
So the
Huh?
two
that map is not 100% accurate.
so the two houses, so if you take the library and the two properties to the east are R3 residential, and then the next property over is in the B1.
Okay, so the map ain't correct that I have here.
Yeah, the one that we have is not correct,
Okay.
because my properties on the south end of town are not on there at all.
Wait, what?
Well, you're down here in the R3.
Yeah, well.
We're here.
126th Street goes straight south to Arden. If you look, they've got it segregated off into different properties. 126th Street is not there, but my two buildings are there. So they're not showing my properties.
Yeah.
So if we changed something on B1, let's say we do something, would the existing properties be grandfathered in, or would we make them conform to the new rules?
For their uses,
Yes.
the uses that are there right now would be able to continue.
Correct.
But if the uses were to leave, a new use, a new business seeking the same use would not be able to go in there.
I understand.
Strictly grandfathered in then.
Correct.
For now. Well, I think we should explore it, but carefully explore this one, because we don't want, I mean, as this is where we don't want car lots and.
Correct. And that's again, one of those things that I'm not overly, I'll just say, enthused by. But yeah, we'll be like, again, we I think Aaron and I, after working for several years, we kind of know the plan commission, village board, building boards kind of feel on some of those things, and we can adjust and kind of know what you guys, I think, are thinking.
Does the board have any other comments on B1?
No.
Just open it up enough to be flexible, but reasonable.
Does that give you enough direction?
I think it does, yes.
More than we had before.
Okay, does the board have anything to add to anything before we adjourn? Any questions from administration at all? Any additional questions?
Not from me. I just again want to thank Victoria and Caitlin for their work
Thank you.
behind the scenes. This is kind of like a show off presentation for them, just because they've done really amazing things, and a lot of things that we've presented to the board in the form of ordinances and what I've given out in my weekly memos have come from the work that they've done and helped us with. So thank you guys.
Appreciated.
And thank you for taking the time, because you have to learn the village and you have to figure out exactly the balance. So that's exactly what you did. So we'll have more discussions on this. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Motion's been made to it and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
On opposition, say nay. Motion passes, adjourned at 6:39. Thank you.
Too much for the quick meeting, huh?